Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Firing Range, a podcast to talk about all things Destiny weapons, abilities, loadouts, and the sandbox at large. And before we get going, gotta tell you a little story. I'm very sad to report that I have indisputable evidence that someone on our podcast has, in fact, sold their soul to the devil. Now, it's really unfortunate when these things happen. There's no player report system that I know of, to God. But was playing with Cool Guy and Drew today, doing a little forge farming for science and a little reckoning. And wouldn't you know it, Drew got I want to lowball it and say about 19 god rolls. Was that about right, Drew?
It sounds about right. I speak of the perks I would like. I receive the perks I would like.
Do you have a genie? How does it work? Do you just kind of put your soul into the words that you say and hope that someone out there is listening above or below?
He's the only Yu-Gi-Oh player, man. He believes in the heart of the cards.
This is true. That's exactly how it works, actually. Building the deck, gotta believe in the heart of the cards.
Is anyone listening right now, do you sometimes feel like there are people who feed on your life force and possibly take things from you? I never felt like that was true until today. Until I did Forge with Drew. Cool Guy, did you get anything good?
Matter of fact, I got an opening shot rangefinder Dire Promise, just as a world drop there in the Menagerie.
Oh, that's right. That happened in Menagerie.
5,000 shards at Rahul, just sitting there for me.
Just sitting
Today
there.
was a good day.
Today was a good day. I didn't get... I got nothing.
Oh yeah, I got a Galliard. It was just a great day, Fall.
Oh god, dude,
Great day
we did
out there.
3 activities. We did Menagerie, Forge, and Reckoning. I got nothing.
If I was there, I would have somehow pulled the curated Twilight Oath from the Forge. I don't know how, but
The funniest thing to me is that we did 24 runs. Follow did not get a single Galliard. And the one weapon that we were talking about, aside from that, I was like, oh, a Baligan would be really cool. It's got some, it's not the best, but
air assault.
And we were discussing, Follow's like, yeah, I got one with slide shot and whatever, and this would be pretty good, but if only I got these better perks, since they can roll with I forget exactly what was said, but literally I want to say 5 runs after I got the exact Baligan that he spoke of. I was like, hey, Follow, I got your Baligan.
Oh my god. And then to add insult to injury, the final, we were like, all right, we'll do one more Menagerie at the end. Because we're all tired. Drew's been streaming for 11 hours or whatever. And we kill the boss, open the chest, and he's making noises where, if you didn't know he was streaming, I'd be like, yo, who turned on the XXX flick in the background? He's like, I got the exact drang I wanted. The exact goddamn drang. It had every perk that he wanted.
I said previously, going to the Menagerie, I'm like, I want max range, so full bore, ricochet, range masterwork. I want moving target and swashbuckle for the little celestial fire melee, because I'm maining warlock. And that's literally what I got. That was our second run.
That's just how it works, man. I imagine D just sitting at his house with all the streams up. Write this down. What does Drew want? All right, calls it in.
What can we do to make today interesting?
Now, what does Fallout want? Give that to Drew, too.
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
a big wish board.
In control of the Matrix.
Yeah,
they want to create stir-up drama.
Cross the wires of who gets what.
It is weighted heavily on heavy weapons. There was a stretch there. There was 1 Galliard, 2 Baligans, a Swift Ride, and about 7 of the Hooskows and 10 Alathas. The grenade launcher. It's heavily weighted ahead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was why we began doing it. I wanted to know if there was a really favorable weapon drop rate for the Mercules Forge, because I wanted to try and get the Galliard auto rifle. And this has nothing to do with anything, but I go into Drew's Twitch chat because he's streaming. And I go, hey, buddy, do you want to do a little forge farming? He cracks up. He's like, dude, I just told my Twitch chat minutes ago that I swore a blood oath to never do forge farming ever again.
Oh, yeah. In my chat, we were talking about, how actually Fallout saw a tweet or was mentioned in some way on Twitter about how I think it was the Burgusia that has a higher drop rate. And I said, even if that was farmable, I will never do that. I will never, ever farm for that auto rifle.
Oh.
I have a good one. And then Follow came into the chat like about 15 minutes later. I was like, oh, well, that's how that goes.
Maybe that's why the drop rate was good for you. Good karma? Because, you know, like, I don't know, Cosmo was listening or something like that. He was like, oh, he's going to do it for friendship. He won't do it for loot. He'll do it for friendship.
Heart of the growth and friendship, you know, the two pillars of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Friendship and loot.
Well, we have one of our mandatory keywords covered for today's podcast, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! The other one we have not brought up yet, and it needs to come up organically. I can't just say the word or it's cheating, but it does come up every episode. Either way, Drew, you're a good friend. I will miss you in the afterlife, but I'm glad your drops were good today.
I look forward to farming with you in the future so I can continue to get your drops.
Great, man. It was a great experience.
It was fun.
It was fantastic.
Yeah,
I have so many weapons.
Friend game.
And with that, needs a little help, but you know.
We will move on to our main topic of tonight, which is the bunker content. Specifically, is there anything worth grabbing out of the bunkers? Be that, you know, a weapon, an armor mod, piece of gear, whatever, anything at all. We're kind of at that point in the season where, you know, we're kind of winding down. We're in a little bit of a lull. We're waiting for the wave of new information for Season 11 to hit. We're kind of riding things out. We know that Bungie is working behind the curtain. We're kind of playing the content that we got. But there's a lot of people out there who are busy. Maybe they have tuned out on the bunker content so far. And now that we're getting to the end of the season, they might be wondering, well, is there anything worth my time at this point? Anything worth their hard... You know, you don't want to waste time, right? Anything that's worth the hard effort. So, boys, as an overall thought before we get into the nitty-gritty, would you say on the whole that farming weapons or armor mods or anything from the current bunker content is worthwhile?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Short answer, yes.
Short answer, yes.
Do we
Medium
have a
answer is you don't have to invest that much time to get it to a passive state where you're getting war mine bits from things you'd like to do anyway. And then you can use that to upgrade your bunkers later down in the season to get free bounties and stuff, again, that will complete from you just doing the things you normally do.
Here's one I want to throw over to Mercules, because I know who at this round table is playing a lot of PvE-focused content, maybe some Grandmaster Nightfall content, and I know who might not be doing that and sticking to their familiar pond of Xbox PvP only, and I might be talking about Mercules. So, Merc, would you say, from a purely PvP perspective, that you have found a lot of the bunker content useful, or you're kind of lukewarm on it? Where do you fall on that?
No, I've for the most part ignored it. I broke down the weapons. I looked at them. I saw a couple of things that I liked that I wanted to chase after. I'm sure we'll talk about it. You know, the Carbine, the Officer Revolver, they're not bad. Shotgun, you know, but for the most part, unfortunately, as a mainly PvP player, I haven't found a lot of motivation to chase things in the bunker. Sadly.
Yeah, true. I did feel like it was kind of borderline a chore from the PvP content, that is. I mean, there's a whole other aspect to it. So I'm going to divert now to Drew and Cammy, who I know are doing a lot of Grandmaster Nightfall stuff. Do you guys, either from a PvP perspective or a PvE perspective, how do you feel that the bunker content is help-wise?
Cam, want to start with PvE?
Yeah, I actually think it's a holistic Destiny answer, meaning that some of these are maybe best in slots for Grandmaster farming or Master farming really quickly, which will feed into you getting your PvP build faster. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
So you do the bunker content to get the best in slot weapons to have faster farming, which will ultimately get you that high stat roll armor and exotic stuff from the Grandmaster Nightfalls. So and maybe weapon drops and stuff.
It's a means to an end.
Means to an end, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Drew, would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, as a PvP player, a lot of PvE, not that I don't enjoy it, is about going doing the activity, becoming as efficient as possible at it so that I can get the best route to the loadout I want to build and then take it into PvE or PvP, sorry. I'm aware that some people don't really have that experience if they're not, totally keen on taking it into PvP or building a loadout for that purpose. But it's still applicable because if you're someone that is more PvE centric and you're just looking to, perfect a end game build for, different Nightfalls or, the Grandmaster Nightfalls, which are, some of the hardest pieces of content in PvE at the moment, I think you still have to go through that same routine.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I would say that the PvE generic content, you can use all these bunker weapons and mods to create something that no matter what the Nightfall combination is, you will complete it with that same loadout.
That's good to know, for sure. I think that a lot of players just kind of look at the bunker content or any, newly presented seasonal content similar to the bunker content, and they kind of just look at it from afar and go like, whoa, that looks really complicated. And to the point where they might not even bother. Does anyone feel that it just looks complicated? Do you guys feel that it's easy for a new player to maybe wrap their head around and they should just kind of get in there? Or what do you feel? Is it too complicated? Too easy? What do you think? In terms of understanding everything on the table. Cool guy?
I can start. I wish with something like this, like the Warmind cells are really good. They're really good in numbers, right? So as an example, like when I started doing it, like not a lot of players are doing it out there. When I was doing the Warmind public event, when it first started, I was like the only one dropping cells. I was like, okay. And other people aren't really helping out with it. Like I really wish with something like that, because it's complicated in a sense, but people just need to know how good they are. Like I wish the season started off with the bunkers, did like the bunker itself, and like did the little prompts, like, hey, this is the Warmind cell, shoot said Warmind cell. Like give them like a free mod in the beginning, kind of walk them through what the season's getting ready to be about. Because there's a lot of people that still don't know what they do. And it's one of those, as a solo player, I play a lot of solo content. It's helped me tremendously getting through some things because I might not have, the highest light to get through it, but I can throw, there's certain mods, like I can throw it onto the enemy that I want to throw it on. I can suppress the areas around. They're super good.
That's not a bad idea, actually, because I do find myself taking sometimes the easy path because, when you're grinding, sometimes there's that real temptation to just turn your brain off. Even if there's someone tapping you on the shoulder, be like, dude, there's an easier way you can do this. And you're like, yeah, but I like the guns I like. I don't want to change my armor. I want to shoot the fallen and throw the orange thing at the other orange thing. But there's more. I mean, if you just take a little bit of time to look into it, you could find a whole bunch more. But I do think that's an interesting idea.
On the flip side, that can keep you engaged in PvE where you might be bored otherwise.
True.
Like take this Mindbender strike that's this week, the Hollow Layer Nightfall. Right now, I'm cycling through every Warmind cell interaction and just trying to see if it works. For example, the Getaway Artist, that's the Warlock one where you consume a grenade to create an Arc Bodyguard, a little anonymous, an autonomous turret on your shoulder.
Named
Fires
George, yes.
Yeah, named George, exactly. Unfortunately, that does not proc the Warmind cells.
Oh,
but the thought was there, right? Like, what if it did? That would be nuts.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But then you also have other perks that might conflict. Like there's one that you walk over a Warmind cell and it gives you an overshield, but there's another one that lets you carry a Warmind cell. And so how do you make that interaction work? Can you override it by carrying it, or does it auto-consume? The answer is it auto-consumes unless you have an overshield up. And you're not going to figure any of this out unless you try it. So my advice is keep yourself interested, keep cycling those perks, and anytime you have a little thread to unravel, like, does that work? Go for it. Try it out.
Good advice. I like it. With that, why don't we, jump right into the pool and talk about the bunker weapons, because there's a couple of them. And I think the people out there want to know if it's worth their time, if it's any good. Which of these weapons should you go for, and which ones should we ignore? We're going to go right down the list. And the first one we have is the 7th Seraph Smg. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? It's a 600 RPM energy. Merc has got some thoughts.
I have some thoughts on this. So we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but here's the funny thing about precision SMGs in the current state of the game, right? 600 rounds per minute, just like adaptive ARs. Less damage per bullet than adaptive ARs. Less zoom, less range, or stability than adaptive ARs. Smaller mag size than adaptive ARs. So if you are going to use a precision SMG, why don't you just take that thought, pop it right out of your head, and replace it with an adaptive AR. Unless you're going to be like Cammy and you're going to mix it up with an exotic that procs based on SMGs, and then I understand. But especially for PvP purposes, for PvE it can be a little bit different, but especially for PvP purposes, you're going to be hard pressed to go from the 7th Seraph VY7 to, the Summoner, or, even Arclogic or something, and be like, oh, I really prefer the SMG. It's just, it's in a very weak spot in the current sandbox. They kind of got overlooked and they just pushed adaptive ARs right past them.
I actually have
I see what you mean.
kind of an opposing opinion, not completely. So I do agree that the 600 SMGs, the lines are blurred. At this point in time, it's totally valid. I think the lines are very much blurred between 600 autos, 600 SMGs, all the reasons you said. That being said, I still like using 600 SMGs, and I we talked about this a little bit on the pre-show or before the show, and I think this is mainly because of the zoom factor. But this 7th Seraph, or this Warmind SMG, the bunker SMG for all intents and purposes, actually has some unique roles. Like I got one with max range, with firmly planted, and elemental capacitor. Now this is really cool for me because on my hunter I play Night Stalker, Wave the Wraith, which is a class that rewards not only crouching, and I'm an uber fan of firmly planted, as I've been very outspoken about in the past. It completely makes it more accurate, so you can duel at longer range a little bit more and get a little bit more consistent headshots. It makes the recoil pattern completely vertical. It plays at least into the class I play, and because I'm playing a void class, the elemental capacitor makes the stats go way up in terms of stability. The thing feels unrivaled in terms of like consistency from an SMG in the 600. I'd say that it actually really contests in TFP. I mean, of course it can't get kill clip, but it still feels really good. And maybe on a completely competitive aspect, you're right. The benefits of an auto outshine that, but to me, probably because of the zoom and the things I mentioned, it feels great, and in some ranges still better to duel a hand cannon with than an auto to me.
Well, don't get me wrong. When I say the gun is bad in the current state of the sandbox, that always leaves open. But if you find a great roll on it, keep it, because you never know what Bungie's going to do to archetypes in the future. But one of the things I didn't want to say, obviously the lower zoom, we know what that means. It means that the sweet spot is up closer. It is going to feel better at closer ranges than an adaptive AR is. It's got 0.3 less zoom, which means that are we allowed to say a word? But that cone for aim assist is going to be wider, up close. So it will feel a little bit better. Not to mention it has 91 recoil direction, which means that the recoil is going to be way more vertical than an adaptive AR by default. So it does have some positives to it. And if you happen to find a really cool roll, like personally, what I've been looking for, elemental capacitor, you're right, is great, especially on a void subclass. I want firmly planted Vorpal weapon. If I happen to get one of those during my grinding, I'll stick it right in the vault for hopefully that day in the future when Bungie's like, oh wait, we forgot about precision SMGs. Why don't we make them do 40 damage per headshot? And then all of a sudden it becomes the best game the best gun in the game.
I like that take.
Yep.
Look for the roll for later.
Again,
Always.
I just think that 600 RPMs as a whole, 100% more competitive, but I don't know. With the perk rolls they offer, it felt surprisingly good to me. I wasn't expecting much, but that's my 2 cents.
Quick side note, just because I'm among friends. You guys have like a full vault at all times, right?
Yeah, I'm nearing 500 at all times.
Okay.
I don't.
I mean, I try and clean it up. I'm very strict with the rolls on my weapons. Like, it has to be near perfect or incredibly unique to earn a spot, but
yeah, I keep god rolls in one roll of every archetype in the game that I like. In case any of them ever get buffed, then I day one have an archetype to go test. But I don't keep any armor at all. So like I get rid of all armor. I don't know why, but yeah. So I have 100 and something weapons in my vault, but 0 armor pieces.
All those players that stored those galliards way back when.
Yeah,
Feel
me.
pretty good right
They're
about
laughing
now,
all the way to the bank
Quick
right
draw
now.
kill clip, man. Quick draw
It does
kill clip.
happen.
And here's where I'd put my Gatliard. If I had one!
I mean, I'll say something helpful to the viewers. My vault management is getting more and more intricate. I mark anything that is potentially junk with a shader so that when I type it in Destiny Item Manager, search for that shader, all my potential junk pops up, and it makes it really easy to filter through. If a weapon serves a good purpose in PvE and PvP, I usually keep it because it's worth 2 slots in my vault.
Dude, you just blew my mind with that shader
Dude,
tactic.
that's next level.
I'm literally going to go through and do that. Just put specific coding with shaders. Like, I feel like, oh, here's the God roll shader. Here's the question mark shader.
Here's the keep no matter what shader.
Save
Here's
this
the
for
consider
shotgun
deleting
testing shader.
Here's the
Oh,
infusion fuel
God.
shader. Yep.
Is
if
there
it
a
doesn't-
shader that has the word junk in it? So you can like
Is there?
literally tag it junk? I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my
the shaders.
God,
I
this
feel
is
there
like-
would be.
Dude, Cammy is Aladdin.
So
I'm
with
on the
this
carpet
one,
ride right
this is
now.
a good,
It's
good
like-
weapon to choose. For PvE, I would go with 4 times the charm Vorpal weapon, but for PvP, I'd want firmly planted. So I'm just gonna take the L on the PvE side and go for firmly planted because it's still good in both,
Yeah.
and that's how I save a vault space. Rather than having 2 SMGs, I have one that does both adequately.
So I know with this
What's the next
crowd,
weapon on the list?
yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be hard to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down because all of us are the type of people who are like, you know what, save it just in case. But let's say we're talking about Johnny Dayjob, right? Who doesn't have a lot of time to go after every weapon. Thumbs up or thumbs down for the SMG?
I'm saying
Down.
I'm gonna go
I'm
down.
gonna have to go down.
And push comes to shove, man. Like there's just it's not even that there's better options. It's like the archetype as a whole needs some help. So even like later on, it could be okay.
Sure.
But even at that point, there's still the Antiope. There's still, you know what I'm saying?
I got you.
Like-
Fair enough.
Yep.
We have delivered our verdict. Moving on. We have the Bunker Shotgun, the 7th Seraph CQC-12. It is a lightweight frame. It's an energy shotgun. Does anyone have any outstanding thoughts on the shotty?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this shotgun is undoubtedly the most competitive weapon of the bunch. A lot of even top players started experimenting with the shotgun early on. Obviously, it's very attractive that it got both receives both quick draw and vorpal weapon, and just inherently has high handling. So quick draw isn't as much as it's nice to have. You might not even need it as much, right? So I think that a lot of players are realizing that lightweight weapons, myself included, lightweight shotguns are very competitive right now. They only have like a meter or so less range typically than the aggressive shotguns, but they have such a higher rate of fire, and they have a lot of different ones, including this one, that have really unique perks like Vorpal weapon to kill supers quicker. And this shotgun could, I believe, it can shoddy melee supers. It can 2-shot supers with a relatively high rate of fire. You might be saying that aggressive shotguns can also 2-shot supers, but this one does it at a higher rate of fire, which means you can really punish them as they're trying to close the gap on you. So I think it's without a doubt very competitive and the best weapon.
I'm going to agree. You know, I think we can all agree right now that aggressive frame shotguns in PvP, they're hot. It's going to take a lot of
best all around,
reworking.
yep.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of reworking from our pals at Bungo to knock the aggressive frame shotguns, like the Mindbender, off their perch. But the lightweight frames, they feel good. Again, like Drew said, they don't have the optimal top tier kill range of being able to get those absurd length one-hit kills, but they're snappy and they have forgiveness. You know what I mean? How many times have you been in a fight in PvP, try to tag someone up close with their shotgun, but maybe their movement is like crazy, erratic. Maybe they're doing a melee rubber band. You know what I mean? So you kind of misshoot because they're locking onto your teammate for the rubber band melee. You want to hit them with that follow-up shot. Not fast enough because the rate of fire is slow and they get you. You know what I mean? The lightweight frame shotguns have a better rate of fire. They're just light, they're snappy, and I like Vorpal weapon. We should mention, by the way, that every bunker weapon can roll with Vorpal, which I think is really cool. But yeah, there's a lot to be said about the shotgun. It's not a guarantee that you'll be able to, you know, mollywop a super that's charging down on you. But I like the thought of when someone's coming at you, you're like, okay, pre-fire, chip damage with your team. They get within the range. Boom, Vorpal shotgun. Again, if they're full health, you can't just charge in, you know, with your Vorpal shotty expecting to just 1v1 the super. But it's good in terms of giving you that extra chance to put down that super. And as we all know, in comp, in Trials, roaming supers are a big deal. Like, you can win entire rounds with no effort for free, and you can cause that snowball effect. And I think the shotgun is actually worth the farm.
Can I put some numbers to that real quick?
Please
just
do.
to mention. So,
Do it.
you were talking about the handling being higher and not quick draw not being as much of a necessity. The base handling on 7th Seraph is 72. That's more than double base handling on Astral
really
Horizons,
high. Yeah.
right? And quick draw is so important on aggressive shotties. It's basically a must-have at this point. And that's one of the nice things about the lightweight archetype is by default their handling is generally about 2 times as high as the aggressive shotguns. In addition, that rate of fire you were talking about, aggressive shotties, it takes over a full second in between shots. It's 1.10 seconds before you can pull the trigger again. With lightweights, it's 0.77 seconds. So it's a significantly faster second shot to follow up. But I just wanted to throw those numbers out there since you talked about them.
Dude,
I'll
I
add
appreciate the numbers, man.
an addendum to this too, which is the lightweight with a single stack of threat detector and certain barrels that boost it in between 70 and 80 handling will be enough to get very close to quick draw, if not beyond the same par as quick draw.
Yeah,
I think
and
it's worth mentioning that this shotgun as well, for those people that are tired of waiting for the Mindbender strike, like this is pretty readily accessible at any point. And I think once you hit a certain point in the season pass, you just get it as drops from like almost any activity. So
Drew, I am telling you that I am tripping over these shotguns, man. And I'm not even like attempting to grind them out. Like, it's once you reach that point, I feel like the game is very generous with the
You're
bunker.
showered with them.
You're showered.
oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
here's something nice. If you're looking at the weapons' possible roll combinations, you got only 4 perks in both column 3 and column 4. Now, you could look at that and be like, well, it doesn't offer a lot of deep variety. But the good news is, if you're chasing a specific roll, you got pretty good odds of getting the perk that you're chasing after. Is 1 in 4 for each column, right? And then if you're taking quick draw off the table, looky here, slide shot. Not freaking bad is what I'm gonna say on that. Cool guy.
Yeah, so like Drew was saying, I don't have a quick draw Mindbenders. I've done that strike. I can't even. It's hundreds. I haven't even gotten a quick draw roll. So something like this, I got my 3rd time. So that's good for me, right? But like, even for PVE, when you look at it, I'm a big fan of lead from gold, right? And when you start looking at these cells, what I like heavyweight. So heavyweight, let's say, with the burn for the shotgun, you can pick up the cell, throw it on that major that you want, go right up to him, hit him with the Vorpal, like hit the cell, then keep hitting him with it. I tried a trench barrel one, I end up liking the Vorpal one more, but the shotgun can be used depending on your role. I mean, again, there's only 4 perks in each node. You could probably get a good shotgun, period. Like quick draw, Vorpal, quick draw, snap, I wouldn't do that. But like slide shot, Vorpal, like there's so many chances to get a good one, and I've gotten all of them with accurized rounds. Like eventually you'll hit because you get so many of them. But I thoroughly enjoy the shotgun. It's like my main PvP energy version because I don't have the Mindbenders. I don't have a good shotgun.
Yeah, it's really not bad. Cammy or Drew, have either of you noticed the shotgun performing really well from a PvE or Grandmaster Nightfall type perspective?
No, I haven't
Really?
used it. No need.
I actually, Cam, that's what I take in a lot of the time when we're playing.
That's fine.
When I need a shotgun. On the Grandmasters, it's a little dependent on the strike. But I love using my quick draw Vorpal roll in either PvE or PvP because it's just incredibly relevant either, in my opinion. So I like that. It's a shotgun that is great in both activities. Like top tier, at least for PvP, and so good for PvE.
All right. Well, feel like I already know which way we're leaning on this, but gentlemen, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Going up.
Thumbs up. It's the best.
Go for it. If you are behind on the bunker activities, at least try to grab a shotgun. Not too difficult to farm for. Keep going for it. You might get a good roll. Moving on. We have the 7th Seraph Carbine, an auto rifle, 450 RPM, kinetic. Anyone feel strongly either way about this gun?
If this were the Uriel's gift meta, it would have been a monster. But sadly, we're just a couple years past that point in time in Destiny 2's life.
But time could be like a circle. You know what I mean? How certain fashion trends come back. What if
Oh, God.
Bungie, gets some wild hair? Hey, 450 autos were kind of fun. Put
Well,
it
hey,
back on
Seraph's
sale.
regime is great again, right? It once was all the way back in vanilla D1, so
Yeah.
it's possible.
I see a trend.
I
work
think
for
the
the cells.
autos. What's up?
It can work for the cells. I like that it has slide shot.
I was gonna say it has slide shot, which is unique. It's actually, I believe, it's the first auto with slide shot, not slideways, slide shot.
Technically incorrect. There is the auto from, it's the second.
Trials.
Yes, the auto from Trials of the Nine, and I can't remember what it's called. I have a friend who uses
The
that
Last
gun.
Breath?
Prospector?
Exclusive.
The last breath
Prosecutor?
sounds familiar.
The Last
Prosecutor.
Breath sounds correct.
The last breath, yeah. I don't
There's
think
two
there's
of them.
Is there not a year 2 one that
Yeah,
has it?
it was Prosecutor and the Last Breath, and
The
Prosecutor
Last
was
Breath
a 450.
is it. It's actually a
The Last
600
Breath is
600
one
auto.
slide
Yeah,
shot.
it's
Slide
actually
shot,
really
which
good.
is not a bad gun at all.
No, if
But,
you have it, it's actually super good to
yeah,
use,
but it's-
currently right now.
But it is, to Drew's credit, it's very rare to have an auto rifle clearly in the game with slide shot, and it is the only, as far as I know, the only 450 RPM auto rifle with slide shot, which makes it definitely unique for sure.
We should clarify that slide shot and slideways, very, very confusing to people who don't know what they are. Two totally separate perks, right? Slide shot is what we're talking about here, which is the one that boosts range and stability, as opposed to slideways, which I think boost handling and stability. So
Yeah,
two
that sounds
very,
right
very
to me.
similarly named perks with similar effects, but ever so slightly different.
Yeah, again, like we mentioned, also has the ability to roll Vorpal Weapon, a perk I'm just really fond of. I like seeing that pop up everywhere. Any unique thoughts on, I don't really use 450 RPM auto rifles in PvP. I don't think I've had a lot of use for the Carbine so far.
It's
I
worth
mean-
noting that
Yeah.
as far as a 7 Seraph weapon, it has damage dealing perks, right? A lot of them don't. So there's Swashbuckler, there's Rampage, there's Warple.
I mean, I think the weapon's unique, but let's address the elephant in the room. 600 autos are the star of the show. 450s probably aren't even that bad. They're probably decent. They probably net you your, optimal TTK a little bit more frequently, or try to do that because they have a, more vertical recoil pattern. They have a lot of consistency perks. They're almost like the adaptive hand cannons right now, the 140s. Tons of consistency perks. They're very, very reliable. They'll probably get your optimal TTK pretty regularly. However, they lack the potential of their counterpart, the 600s, that, still are still plenty competitive even without hitting their optimal TTK all the time. Again, similarly to the 150 hand cannons, I feel like it's a similar kind of relationship here. So for those reasons, I think this auto is not going to see a lot of attention right now.
Yeah.
Even in the PvE Warmind cell builds, I don't find this one as valuable. Because you have the hand cannon in the same slot.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless anyone has any additional thoughts, are we going to weigh in on this one early? Because I'm kind of feeling like
I'm down.
we're all
Yeah.
on the same page
It's
here.
tough, specifically for PvE. I think that there are better weapons for the cells. It's a meh type deal. And when it comes to PvP, Uriel's Gift has firmly planted kill clip, firmly planted disruption break. There's breakneck for PvE. It goes on. It's
Yeah,
kind of in a weird
That is true,
spot.
yeah.
And for
I-
PvP, I'll style with the horror story just to have a cool looking weapon.
Yeah.
Style
I
is
can
important.
confirm, though, to our previous point, this is the only year 2 auto with slide shot. The other
Yes,
one, only
correct.
other auto in the game with slide shot is, like we said, the last breath. I just want to double check on this.
Mhm.
But the funny part is, like we said, you might be better off using the last breath since it's a 600 RPM auto, even though it's a
Yeah.
year 1 weapon, which
Yeah.
really speaks to, unfortunately, the
Strongly
state of this weapon.
So
I
then
mean,
maybe get one of these with slide shot and just vault it if you have spare space.
Because it's an archetype thing that makes it weak. The TTK is a fifth of a second slower on optimal and on body shots, right? And then if you miss a shot, adaptives are still more forgiving. So it's unfortunately, the one thing that they used to have going for them was a fast TTK and far range for an auto, but now the TTK is not really competitive in where they work.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, thumbs.
Thumbs down.
Down.
Thumbs have been pointed down. Fair enough. I would agree. Moving on, we have the 7th Seraph Si2, which is a sidearm. Does anyone have any strong thoughts on the bunker sidearm?
It is the lowest range sidearm in the entire game.
Yeah, 24.
We can start there. But
Okay,
that
that's
doesn't necessarily-
relevant to PvP, so we can start there, yeah.
There you
That
go.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, right? It has a couple things. It shoots fast. It has Dragonfly, and that can immediately pop a cell in PvE. I mean, you're going to start comparing this thing to, obviously, Anonymous Autumn. Anonymous Autumn is going to absolutely wreck it as far as the range category. This can't get rangefinder, can't get anything like that. But it's one of those things on field, too. You're in very CQC anyway with these types of sidearms. So if you like it, it has decent stability at a 42 stat. Recoil direction is 95. Like, it feels pretty good in your hands. You feel like John Wick. But other than that, like, the range step kind of keeps me away from it because it's hard to build into that.
Sure.
Right, and I was going to say, if you want range on a sidearm, Drang is the answer. So much so that it makes this redundant.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
at
like,
that point, Cam, I feel like the reason to use the sidearm in PvE,
PvP.
in PvP, sorry. Oh, we were talking about PvP. Yeah, I mean, sidearm, like, yeah, range is better. I was gonna go back to what Cool Guy was saying with the whole Warmind cell thing. I see a lot of like pretty good PvE players using this. Like, EK is one of our good friends that uses this very frequently, and I assume it's because it's Vorpal. Like I said, or like you said,
100%. In PvE, this is clearly top tier. Very, very good weapon.
you can
I
probably
definitely-
shred through champions' shields, you know, for anti-barrier, right? Anti-barrier, I believe.
sure, yeah.
Yes.
That's available on the artifact
Great
right now.
combination.
But yeah, just to give to piggyback off of what Cool Guy said, it's just like, yeah, from a PvP perspective, definitely not feeling it. I feel like sidearms are one of those weapon categories where you just feel the lack of range right away. Like, it really hurts because sidearms have that usable engagement distance that you're familiar with. And when you go from a sidearm that you feel really hot about, Drang is like kind of the king right now if you're a sidearm player. And then you go from that to maybe like a sidearm with really no range, like the bunker one. You feel it right away. I would agree with you, Cool Guy, that for PvP, I'm gonna say not hot, but I definitely want to hear, because I know Cammy's been using this gun, and I know it feels a certain way, and I want to hear from the PvE perspective.
Okay, the PvE perspective. This one is great for Warmind builds, for the Warmind cell perks and whatnot. It also has Vorpal weapon, so if you're using a sidearm, it's usually to break shields of the champions, right? And so Vorpal weapon will allow you to do more damage to those. And what I'm finding is I don't like auto-loading holster on this gun as much because there's some downtime between the shield going up and the boss regenning some health. And auto-loading takes a little bit too long. So what I want is a speedy reload. And there's a couple perks that can give that to me. It can be Demolitionist for throwing the grenade to instantly reload. It can be Threat Detector for close range reload increase. Or what's it called? Not firmly planted. Field Prep, by just crouching to just get a faster reload. You could also go for Drop Mag, but like Cool Guy brought up, this sidearm doesn't have a lot of range. So if you're not bringing a machine gun along with your build overall, you might lack overall.
Good call. Do you feel like when you're doing PvE activities where you're trying to take advantage of Warmind bunker stuff like the cell, you find this sidearm definitely helpful for sure?
This one adds up a lot, but if you're not doing Warmind cells whatsoever, you might be better off with a Drang, because Drang also has armor piercing rounds, and then it also has disruption break and shield disorient. So if you need a solar option and you're not taking advantage of Warmind cells, well then Drang is probably a better PvE option. But the second you put on a Warmind perk and need void damage, this is the way to go.
And I believe the armor piercing rounds is 5% more in PvE.
Correct.
That's the number.
This sidearm cannot roll armor piercing.
Yeah.
I still think Accurized is probably the way to go there.
Gotcha. That's kind of good to hear, because I mean, I've been doing bunker stuff for the current season. I have all my bunkers upgraded. I haven't really dived too deeply into the pool of abusing the Warmind cells, which we're going to get to eventually. But good to know, because I take the words of the boys at this table very, very highly. And if I want to get into that, I'm definitely going to go through my vault now. I'm going to see which sidearm I feel like I can bring out to take advantage of that Warmind cell stuff. So good stuff. Anyone have any additional thoughts? Cool guy, more thoughts on the side?
The main thing to take away is the engagement distance. That goes for PvE as well with that range stat. You want accurized rounds, but for PvE, you might want like an extended mag or something like that. Ultimately, you have to be right up in there, like in a Grandmaster type deal. It could get tough because you have to be a little bit closer. And in PvP, like you can do well with it. I've seen players use it. It feels really good. Like I don't want to take that away from it. It's got 95 recoil direction. Like it feels good in your hands. But you're living life on the edge with it, with where you need to be with it. So that's why I kind of stay away, personally. But I do have a Vorpal one that I've been using, and it's been shredding. But it's kind of light content, if that makes sense. It's not Grandmaster or anything like that. I play solo a lot.
I think it has a place in Grandmaster with a Vorpal weapon rule, so look
Really?
out for that. Vorpal plus reload booster of some sort, and then anything else is personal preference.
Fair, yeah. Anyone, any final thoughts on the sidearm, the SI2, before we give the thumb treatment? Fair enough. Final judgment. What are we thinking? Is it kind of like a mixture? One for PvE, one for PvP?
This is like a 45-degree thumb up.
Yeah.
45-degree thumb?
The range stat, dude. Like if the range stat was like at least 35, like I would be good because you can work with that. But 24, man, oh, you feel it. If you've ever shot the sidearm, you feel it.
Back to the vault discussion of maybe managing space. This would be one that might get deleted because Drang runs double duty.
Drang does
It's
in
good in
fact
both.
run double
Drang's
duty.
got disruption break too, man. Like
I can
Drang-
live with a little less Warmind cell to use Drang
Fair.
for sure.
Yeah, Drang brings home the bacon. Cooks it up in the pan. It does it all. Double threat. We are moving on to everyone's favorite weapon archetype, hand cannons. We have the 7th Seraph Officer Revolver hand cannon, 180 RPM, kinetic. Who has a hard feeling on this, one way or another? I'm feeling like
I think
a certain
Drew.
Drew might.
I've seen Cool Guy talking about it a little
But
bit.
all right, check it out.
Hit us, cool guy.
Primarily console player.
Yeah.
I've always liked the 180s, and ever since True Vanguard said it once, that's how I think of them. It's a sawed-off 180 Scout. Like that's how I think of it, just because it doesn't really play by the same rules as other hand cannons. It's similar, but the way the cone interacts, just everything about it, it's not linked with them. But like this thing has a very large perk pool, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 6 perks in each one. As a 180 for PvP. Like, it has some really cool things. It has firmly planted. It has multi-kill clip, which is a chainable thing. So you get that Luna old NF TTK, right? 0.67, 3 headshots. The issue that I found is that the TTK shift to the 0.7s, you see a lot of 600 ARs. This is a 1-second TTK. It's supposed to be a relaxed thing. Even if you're using cover, they can still spray that corner down. And a lot of times, and I have so many clips of me getting into a straight gunfight and cannot get off the 4 shot, just simply limited to the archetype. Like, it just loses. Even when I've been trying to play really crafty with it, kind of, using cover, using angles, it still struggles, man. I like the trust with an explosive round. Now, this does have time payload. That has helped versus 600 ARs, but I don't really want to use a weapon. Like, the whole goal of it is I shouldn't be hoping that they miss. You know, does that make sense? Like
it does. Your battle plan for combat should not be success on the condition that they fail.
Yeah,
you
that
want
they
like
failed.
you want guaranteed almost success, right?
I've had good games with it, but like when push comes to shove, I get into these situations and it can't TTK them before they get me. That's my main issue, and it's not just this one, just 180s in general. Like, they got pushed further to me down the list.
I really
PvE,
like the hand
different
cannon.
story.
Drew,
Let's
what's
hear
up?
it.
I really like the hand cannon for PvP.
You do?
I do. I like I said, I had it like very, very early on. I had a really good roll early on, and I was impressed with how it felt. For whatever reason, this hand cannon to me feels better than pretty much every other 180 in the game at the moment. I like the perk pool it has. It can get things like firmly planted, which I very much stand by in almost every scenario, but especially on hand cannons. It can get multi-kill clip, which, as Cool Guy said, is a chainable kill clip buff. To be clear, no other 180 hand cannon has gotten a chainable kill clip buff. And this is important because the best place where 180s perform is when they got that classic not forgotten TTK, like Cool Guy said. But with other hand cannons, you have to really time your kill clip, like really time it to make sure that you're like hitting that sweet spot with it. And that's kind of irritating in the midst of a PvP game. I want to be able to just reload, get it done, and keep shredding. Keep hitting that not forgotten 3-tap.
I hope I don't sidetrack with this question.
Clip.
I hope I don't sidetrack with this question too much, but Drew, you just got me thinking of like if you chained together multi-kill clip, you get that really optimal weapon performance. That would be a really high ceiling on the weapon. But it sounds like it's it's kind of a struggle to ramp up to that high ceiling. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of a struggle depending on what the enemy's rolling with. They're going to be using good weapons. How you're playing the map, everything going on. Do you guys like weapons with a high ceiling or a high floor? That's a really big sidetrack question, but I have to know.
I mean, for me, it's how well can I play with the gun, not how much is it going to save me if I don't play super well with it, right? So I love guns with kill clip, like my Galliard 42 has kill clip. Not because that helps me on my first kill, but because I know that once I get that first kill, I'm probably getting 2 or 3 more after it while kill clip is up, right? So I love a gun that allows me to take a step up to that next level if I play well, because I have confidence in myself and I have confidence in the tools that I use. So I want a gun that when I'm playing well, further benefits me. But that's because of how much time I played and how much I've spent in the game, right? If I were just starting out and I was brand new to the game, kill clip's probably not going to help me for crap, right? So, depends on the player.
Fair.
I think I like a high floor. I've changed this philosophy quite a bit, but I've started leaning towards a place where I want my weapon to be as consistent as possible. It doesn't need to be flashiest or most explosive thing. Of course, I like some weapons like that. But to me, if I'm guaranteed like the best opportunity at headshots and an optimal time to kill, assuming it's relatively competitive, I like that best.
Yeah, I might agree with you, Drew. I think there's like a certain challenge which I like about having high ceiling weapons, because when you're playing for yourself, you want to have fun, you want to hit that moment, you're like, oh dude, what if I run this build and if I totally nail whatever loadout you're trying to set for yourself? You got a really high ceiling weapon, you pop off with it, you feel great. These days I find myself playing really long hours at a time, especially if I'm doing like trials with friends, trials with like viewers and stuff like that. Sometimes I just want to not turn my brain off, but I like what Drew said about I want to have a weapon that I know is going to deliver consistent performance. Keyword consistent, because I hate inconsistency. It's like the most annoying thing ever to me. Weapons that I know are going to perform well. I really do appreciate that high floor.
Yeah, I think that it's not something to be ashamed of, and I think if you look at the metagame or like some of the top players use, there are weapons that have a high floor and a high ceiling. And in my humble opinion, hand cannons or the 150 RPM hand cannons are one of those. They have some of the best, obviously aim assist values. They give you a ton of benefits. They have the most forgiving rate of fire, but they still give you that high ceiling of a traditional hand cannon with really high DPS and headshot damage and the ability to peek shoot and everything that goes with that. So I do think there are weapons that do have a good degree of both, like a high floor in terms of consistency, we'll call it, and ease of use, but also still give you a high enough ceiling. And again, at the top level, what do you see a lot of top players using? The 150 hand cannons and things like spare rations, dire, thorn. Why? Because they all have a pretty good degree of consistency and ease of use, but still have enough of a ceiling to be taken advantage of.
I'll add to here that my inventory when I go into PvP contains a little bit of everything. Some things with a high ceiling, some things that have both, some with just the high floor. Depends on how I'm feeling and what the team needs.
That's a good answer.
I also like that as a enthusiast player who plays way too much for my own good, that the high ceiling weapons seem to respect my attempt at skill growth, which means that if I am getting good with something that has a high ceiling, I can feel very confident that if somebody rage switches to that weapon, they're not going to do anything with it. It's so nice.
I like that answer. I was curious. I appreciate your input on that, boys. So we have a couple thoughts here on the hand cannon. Certainly has potential limitations in a PvP capacity because of the strength of other weapons in the meta. It definitely has potential to get traction and really wreck face under the right circumstances. Do we think it is overall worth the chase, though?
Well,
I think it is.
Yeah, it
This
probably
is going to be one of those save it for storage sort of things.
Gotcha.
It's either that or, again, it's the most unique 180 RPM hand cannon there is right now. It's the best feeling. It's got very good stats. It's got the most unique perks. It just is falling short because of the archetype problems and not so much the weapon itself, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And this hand cannon, unlike the 450 auto, has a lot more perks on it that make it worth getting. Again, multi-kill clip, firmly planted, time payload. There's a lot of really unique stuff here instead of just one perk.
That is true.
So.
You know what's something else you can consider? Bungie might not only buff a weapon type or sub-archetype. Bungie could also buff a perk. And if a hand cannon has the potential to roll with many perks, you could have the potential to have your specific hand cannon buffed if Bungie buffs the perk on your hand cannon. So we thinking worth the vault? Oh no, Merc.
Well, hold on. We still got to talk about PvE.
That's
and
true.
I'm thinking that this. I'll just knock this one out real quick. In PvE and PvP, just holistically, there is not a role that runs double duty well enough to save you that vault space. But there is a role that I use in my typical Grandmaster build that is 4 times the charm to make that small magazine less punishing, and Vorpal weapon. Though I do, looking at it now, there is a reason to use a lot of the other perks in that column, which is multi-kill clip, high impact reserves, time payload, and osmosis. Osmosis will give you better use of shield breaking by comboing your grenade to change the element of the gun, and time payload of 4 times the charm sounds like it'll break it, but remember, time payload is a delayed explosion, so if you land the headshot, it's still going to count towards that 4 times the charm, and then that time payload portion, the explosive portion, will keep that damage even across the map, so you can still use your sawed-off scout rifle as more of a scout rifle.
So, bringing it up, how you compared it to a sawed-off scout rifle, this actually has two links. There's another comparison of a weapon archetype. So, precision hand cannons, what they are at their base is it is a precision sidearm that has had the rate of fire slowed down and is now a hand cannon. It does the exact same damage, 38.2 to the body, 57 to the head, right? It has pretty much the same recoil animation. It is even called precision across both things. So I look at it that way. But in addition, when you're talking about high skill floors, this gun as a whole has a high skill floor. It's very much like the Hung Jury from D1, which was everybody's favorite.
I agree, Mercules. It was everyone's favorite scout rifle.
That was the last they ever saw of
You
them.
just keep looking at the camera, looking
Like
sexy and fresh. Oh,
Holding
there he
on.
is. Okay, there we go. He came out of the wormhole. Okay, we're good.
did I disappear for a brief moment of time?
You
You
did.
froze on camera. Yeah.
Well, you're able to hear my voice at least. The last thing I said was the Hung Jury is everybody's favorite newbie scout rifle, right?
Yeah, there you
So
go.
that-
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it took 2 crits and 2 buys to get the optimal TTK. Also, coincidentally, it was a 1.00 second TTK, which is what the precision hand cannons are. And against some armor variations, you can get a 2 crit, 2 body kill with these guns. It's a very, very easy to use gun. It has a pleasant feel about it. And you're right that right now, because of its archetype, it's not competitive. But, imagine that they either nerf 150 RPM hand cannons, which, God forbid, if they did that, I can't imagine the salt. Or they buff 180 RPM hand cannons. This is a very, very good gun.
This is going to be a giant thumbs up for me, and it's the PvE side that carries it for me. You can combo it with an Ariana to have that double hand cannon, because remember, if you use like Lucky Pants, you never have to reload. There's a lot of cool things you can do with this. Warmind Cell especially, though, because it is a Warmind Seraph weapon.
Mhm.
I think the role, though, if I had to pick one, is 4 times the charm Vorpal weapon, and literally anything else. It'll be fine.
Good criteria. Very broad for new players. I like it.
I had a question for
Applies
Mark.
firmly.
It was really interesting. You said that it's actually the same, and I actually never noticed this. That it's the same as the precision sidearms.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so do the precision sidearms have the same archetype buff, or is it just? I think it's just. It just describes the recoil. It just says more predictably vertical recoil.
Yeah. So when
I
I,
have the
did
game
testing,
open.
yeah, when I did the testing on this back in the day, the precision archetype buff acted as a counterbalance mod, as a single counterbalance mod.
Oh,
Is
interesting.
what it had.
Cool.
So the recoil direction that you see in game on the stats, I think back in vanilla D1 when I tested this, which was a long time ago, it added 20 to it. Is effectively what it did. If you check the patterns on the wall and watched, it didn't match up with where you would expect that 55 recoil direction or whatever it was to be. And I tested on auto rifles because it's much easier to figure out the recoil patterns on auto rifles. But because the perk text didn't change across any of the other precision archetypes, I made the assumption, hopefully correct, that it was the same for all other archetypes as well.
So the reason I ask is another selling point for this hand cannon is the precision hand cannons have a very specifically different bonus, where they just have inherently higher accuracy. So as much as they do lack a little bit, or very much so in terms of TTK and their neutral game, if you want to call it that, they do have higher accuracy.
I'm confirming this for you right now. I am in game. The sidearm reads this weapon's recoil pattern is more predictably vertical. That is all it says. And then I'll go over to my hand cannon, read it, and it says
will say higher
this
accuracy.
is more predictably vertical and fires quickly with high accuracy.
And that's the big thing, right? So high accuracy, we all know about the cones. It means that it's going to maintain better accuracy over a high rate of fire, better than the other hand cannons. So it's going to have less of that quote-unquote bloom effect of other hand cannons. And remember, any accuracy buffs like this do mean, in turn, better in-air accuracy and performance. So hand cannon's got that going for it too.
I'll take a second to say that's a really clever way to go about this as far as sandbox balancing. Because it seems like both have their use.
Well, that was a fun little rabbit hole.
That have their identity crisis.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've already come to the conclusion here, but so the thumb vote on the hand cannon, we're gonna give it a.
Oh,
I'm gonna give it a
worth
thumbs
the-
up.
I'm
worth the
giving it
vault.
up.
Worth the
Get
vault.
this hand cannon.
Grab it. Hold on to it. Moving on to the final bunker weapon, which is the 7th Serif Saw, which is a machine gun. Power weapon, 360 RPM. Who's got thoughts on this bad boy?
Firing line, man. Cammy and I were talking about this. Firing line on a machine gun.
That's pretty hot. For those of you at home who might not know, firing line is it's a perk that grants you additional damage when you are standing near minimum 2 teammates. Is that?
Yep. Two or
Two
more.
or more allies.
Two or more allies, and you get a 33%?
Increased precision. Yep.
Gotcha. Extra damage output. And there are only 5 guns in the game with this perk. And
Something like that.
Yeah,
This is
Line
the
in
only machine gun.
Sand, Soul Survivor. It's a sniper, a linear fusion rifle, and I forget what the other ones are.
It is incredibly rare, but a very good perk for damage dealing. And the machine gun has it. I am happy to discuss the other ins and outs of this gun, but already just personally, the fact that it has such a rare perk, I am on board with this gun for sure.
Yeah.
I can explain to the viewers why firing line's the obvious choice.
Hit him with it.
It's a Seraph machine gun, so if you're using it, it's probably to take advantage of the Warmind cells. Otherwise, there are better machine guns for just general ad clearing. So the other perks in that firing line column is Vorpal Weapon and Disruption Break. Disruption Break you think would be good, right? Because you break the shield, it makes your kinetic damage more lethal, so you save machine gun ammo because your kinetic hits harder. But you could also save machine gun ammo by just having your bullets do more damage by themselves with firing line or with Vorpal. But Vorpal only works on bosses. Firing line works on anything.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. I've only used this gun for a little bit, but as a machine gun, I really enjoy it for PvE. I haven't used it much in PvP.
I tried it in PvP with Disruption Break to see if I can save that ammo. And it hits 48 to the head, so it's not going to be enough to 2-tap to the head, then switch to a kinetic hand cannon to clean up and save a bullet. It's not enough. So it ends up being just useless.
Yeah, I mean, when you got Hammerhead, all other legendary machine guns kind of struggle a bit in PvP. They went real hard on making Hammerhead good as like the entry to machine guns, and consequently, you know, all the other ones just don't seem to stack up, in my opinion.
I would agree. It's very difficult to
agree.
topple Hammerhead.
It also has auto-loading holster on this one, which is phenomenal for PvE, especially when you're cycling other Warmind weapons.
Yeah, that's a great PvE perk. You know, do a little damage, more enemies come out, you need to switch, so you just put it away. You know, tag them down with your other primary, and then, you know, you get the auto reload. We appreciate auto reloading, especially because machine guns have that annoying long tiring reload animation, which you can improve, but like it's
so
just
the
still
other
irritating.
machine gun that's arc that you would use for arc shields and whatnot, and not on a Warmind build, is the Moon machine gun, which is adaptive, so like the Hammerhead's archetype. It has shield disorient and pulse monitor. That's my recommendation for that one. But I still think the Saw with the firing line autoloading holster combo is just as good.
Got it. Unless anyone feels really strongly, I am making an executive call right now that this gun is just, I feel like we're on the same page right now. Are we able to give a vote on this right now?
Yeah.
I'm giving it a thumbs up.
Rounds out a PvE loadout. It's very good.
Snag it. Cool. Well, those are, believe it or not, all the bunker weapons. There are only 6 of them, but we've given some thoughts here that kind of fleshed out. I hope that those of you listening at home take those to heart if you're interested in spending some time grinding out the bunker content. And moving on, don't know how much we want to get into the water on this one, but we have a bunch of armor mods, a bunch of bunker armor mods that are unique to dropping Warmind cells. For those who might not know, if they're late to the content, does anyone want to give a quick description of what the Warmind cell is? Because I feel like every armor mod, even though there are a lot of them, and we don't have to go through each one. I don't think we have time to go through each one. But they all fall under one umbrella, which is just they relate to a Warmind cell. Any who wants to take the description on that one?
I trust Cool Guy to do this one, but if not, I'll handle it.
Let's just go off each other here. So you're gonna have mods on your armor. It's gonna be there's one universal, maybe 2 universal. It's the one that makes it, I forget the exact name, I don't have everything in front of me. Makes a distance better, but like there's arc, there's solar, there's void, and that kind of plays into the weapons here. So you know, void's gonna be your hand cannon, and so on and so forth. So that's why like the LMG's really good, because you can throw on some reserves on one thing and, you know, kind of go from there. And the rest of your armor could be towards like the hand cannon sniper loadout. But essentially, when a Warmind cell drops and you hit it, it takes that Warmind cell is going to take your mods. So someone could drop a cell and you shoot it, that's your mods, and maybe you shoot an enemy and it drops a cell and somebody else will shoot it, it's not going to do what your cell, you know, even though you dropped it, it's what their mods are doing. So you can work with a team off of each other. So like the arc mods are really good. Well, it's within the artifact itself to be able to spawn more of the Warmind cells.
Let's preface that with saying that you create a Warmind cell by using either the artifact perk, which means your arc melee, arc grenade, or arc super creates a Warmind cell, or you have an armor perk that is, it's the same on a lot of different perks that says sometimes killing something with a Seraph weapon will create a Warmind cell. And a Warmind cell is just a tiny orange ball that falls out of an enemy's corpse, and if you shoot the ball, it has an effect. If you pick up the ball, it has an effect. If you pass through it, has an effect. These effects have to do with those armor mods.
The arc's really good for getting cells out there for your team. I don't think that they're necessarily the best cells. I personally like the Void because I play solo. The suppression's super good, man. The suppression cell, because you can keep shooting it and it pulses out a suppression. It's almost like they're being hit like by a tractor cannon, and just kind of suppresses them down. The solar ones are very, very good too, and you can combine them. And there's also, as Cam was saying earlier, there's some that you consume and there's some that like you can throw. Like probably my favorite one is the one that you can throw because I play solo, because I can kind of direct it. Because what usually ends up happening is you go through a whole bunch of ads, and at the end, when that random cell drops, everything's all dead and the cell's just laying on the ground. Well, I just take that bad boy with me up to the next section of the lost sector, and I throw it on the champion, right? So to me, that's it's such a simple thing, but that's probably my favorite cell. Just because I can direct I can
Sure.
throw it on something.
I was actually, when doing research for this very episode, admittedly, I am behind on the Warmind cell content. I'm a gun guy, you know what I mean? I like going over the guns. I haven't really been digging deep into the armor mod stuff, but as I was listing and researching every one of these armor mod perks, I was thinking to myself, like a bunch of smart dudes could probably make some really devastating combos with these, because like you said, some of these you can pick up and move. And there's a ton of different things. Like here's one, you gain a bonus to weapon damage against enemies that are near Warmind cells. That's the Power of Rasputin armor mod.
I'm about to blow your guys' mind.
What
if I told you of all things that the Aeon exotics are useful? The Aeon series.
I would call you a dirty liar.
On Warlock, yes.
Warlock.
If
Dude,
you throw
they're
a
good at PvP.
grenade,
Nobody believes
it
me.
gives other Warlocks with the Aeon cold armor grenade energy.
Sure.
And so as
yeah.
long as you count it down as if I'm fire team member number 1, I count it out, 1 grenade thrown. Second person counts it out, second grenade thrown. Third person counts it out. As long as you do it in that order, you have infinite grenades, which means infinite Warmind cells. And then you can use all the mods to create a variety of effects to it. There are some that are completely underwhelming, like the one that says collect a Warmind cell to arc energy around you or something like that.
Yeah.
It does almost nothing. I don't think it works.
The
But there are
modular
other ones that
lightning
are fantastic, that you just shoot them and it blows up like a bomb and hits everything. You think it's too far away, but it'll still hit with global reach. That's another perk. Then there's another one that you walk over to collect and it gives you an overshield. So this incentivizes playing fast and loose, like the Seraph Shoddy, for example.
Yeah. Are there any that you remember by name that you can identify as being like, if players have to keep their eye out for a small handful of these armor mods, which are the ones that you're like, oh, that's the one, dude. You got it. That one's always
The ones that you get for free. The ones on the artifact mod are really strong.
Really? Okay.
I'd say global.
That's the
Reach
ones
is a
that gives you
priority,
the disruption effect for breaking them, which means in Grandmaster content, you can flex as somebody who can cancel those champions by shooting those Warmind cells.
Gotcha. And cool guy, you said global reach, right? Is the one that
extends the effect of whatever mod that you're using.
It gives it a massive blast radius that's like
Yeah.
a room wide. It's insane. I think
It's
global
really that
reach is
big?
a necessity. It's very much a necessity.
Yeah,
I
number
agree.
1 mod right there.
interesting.
Here's another very amazing thing, is that there are also Warmind cell perks that go hand in hand with the previous season of content, the Charged with Light effect. Something as collecting a Warmind cell gives you a charge of light, or getting a multi-kill near a Warmind cell gives you a charge of light, or getting a multi-kill with that Warmind cell gives you charge of light. And so you can use the previous season content to do more damage when you're charged with light, to heal with a grenade kill when you're charged with light, and a variety of other things. So there is a world at which you create 3 kinds of teammates. Yourself to be the catalyst that creates a lot of Warmind cells infinitely, then another that can take advantage of the Warmind cells to self-heal and get in close or something like that, and maybe a third person who uses powerful friends with the 3 of you to take advantage of the charge with light mechanic. I say all this in theory because there isn't really difficult enough content right now to warrant that level of creativity. So I'm hoping that Grandmasters get harder in the future for that reason.
However, I do want to give the benefit of the doubt, Cam. The main Grandmaster Nightfall build we've been running on launch that I've been really enjoying is like just maybe not the most efficient, but super safe, guarantees
It's
pretty-
consistent. No matter what we get, it's going to work.
Completion, yeah, no matter what we did, it's going to work. And that's pretty much like a full-on team blinding build where, we have one person on like blinding grenades on the Arc Striker subclass to just completely blind enemies so they're just not doing anything to us. I usually run my favorite mod, which is Cellular Suppression, with what Cool Guy said, which was Global Reach. That gives another... The suppression effect is kind of similar. Like, enemies don't attack you. They kind of sit there kind of doing their thing, looking weakened. So the combination between the blinding and the suppression renders the enemies quite useless, and you just kind of go through them and you just kill them as they're just sitting there.
Yeah,
Use-
I'll add that our go-to consistent, no matter what we get, Grandmaster build, it might take a lot of building time. Like, you have to go through every piece of content in the game to put together some of these builds, but they work for everything. You blind, and you can even switch the armaments perk to feed like an anarchy ammo. So you blind an enemy, and since they're blind and not doing anything, you chip damage until it's very weak, secure that kill with a grenade, and now you have armaments to then use anarchy to take out more scary stuff.
I have a question for you too.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done the Grandmaster Nightfalls, and you guys have done them every week, from what I've seen. I follow your blog on Twitter, but anyway, is it to a point that you can do some really cool things? I think we can agree with that. Like, I've been messing around and Lost Sector's having a good time with them, and I could see, like, if multiple people did it, it could be super good. Like, imagine a raid or something like that. But is it to a point it's like, yeah, you guys are putting together, let's say you have Ariana's Vow, and then let's say the machine gun to get the cells going, but do you even need that machine gun? Like, can you just like bypass the cell system? Like, would it be better just to use really strong weapons, like whatever it is an Augur Recluse, right, or Mountaintop Recluse, whatever it is? Like,
Every Nightfall is going to have a different answer. I built something that I feel works on any Nightfall that they can possibly come up with.
would you prefer the Warmind system over using just a very solid, strong loadout?
I like it. So
I
far.
would say so. I think it's
Exactly.
consistent.
Yeah.
I just wish more of the player base was on board with it. I don't know if that has to do with like the content drop of how it came out, because I still find people that don't even really know what they do.
Yeah. Again,
Like I
It's a
said,
shame.
yeah.
at the very beginning of this podcast, which is any of this stuff important? Yes, because holistically as a Destiny player, understanding this stuff means you are farming more efficiently, which means for my PvP builds, I spend a lot less time acquiring those because I'm faster at completing this content.
Here's the thing, though. I'm a mainly PvP player. I'll be honest. I'm looking at this list of like Warmind perks and stuff. I had no idea about half this stuff, right? Because the chances of me doing a Grandmaster Nightfall at any point in the next couple of weeks are probably pretty slim, right? There's not really a ton of in-game content there's not really a ton of content that I do that would require, like what you said earlier, there's not enough hard content to require this level of like in-depth studying on the perks and stuff like that, right? Like, if I'm going to go run strikes in the strike playlist, it doesn't really matter which of these Warmind things I'm using or not. Like, I'm going to breeze through that content. And simultaneously, at like legend level Nightfalls, I can do it without ever using a Warmind anything. So there's this kind of weird gap where there's like one part of the game that really, really, really helps to have this content. But to me, it's not necessarily useless, but it's not necessarily needed either in like every other portion of the game. Like, there wasn't a new raid that came out that it was super, super helpful in. It's not it's not helpful at all in PvP, right? It literally doesn't function in PvP. So to me, as the type of player who's not going into Grandmaster Nightfalls, I don't see any reason to invest in this type of system, despite the fact that the depth is, now that I'm looking at it, actually very attractive. It's like, it's triggering some stuff in my mind.
If the difficulty was there, this would be some of the coolest stuff in the game. I'd be still working on teams of 3 builds that can take advantage of this for a specific Nightfall.
I think the problem as well is just like there's a lot of activities right now which came before this that don't need this, that don't really require this in any way. They don't challenge you enough to utilize this, and that's really the biggest issue. And on top of that, we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, and I didn't get to say, is anyone like overwhelmed by this? I'm not gonna lie, I'm someone that loves to go really in depth, as we all are. And I was pretty overwhelmed by having to go from bunker to bunker to bunker and read these mods and like try and
Me too.
understand what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
It was a little jarring. So
I don't know. It's also a question of, is this like a one and done deal? Because we have these 5 Seraph weapons. Like, harder content comes out, am I gonna bring out my officer revolver? Like, what are we doing here? Because I think the cells themselves is a very cool mechanic, man. I think they're cool. And if you guys out there haven't tried them yet, and maybe you've kind of dabbled up to the moon bunker or wherever it is, there's some that you can buy. Like, check them out, man. They're super cool. I just wish it was more, like you said, needed. Wish it was more needed.
I am so on board with that theory. Mercules, I am right there with you, brother. Because when I was doing research for this list, I was looking over these, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, I want to go into a lost sector and just detonate the room with a Warmind cell. It sounds fun. I haven't been doing that because I've been doing a lot of PvP. This actually looks really fun. And I was like feeling hype about it, and then you're like, you were like, what is this really needed for? And then all of a sudden my energy level just kind of went down. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I guess I could do Grandmaster Nightfalls, but like, they don't really offer. Don't they offer no unique loot? It's just sort of like
it's not a significant increase over just the master,
right,
which
yeah,
and even the Grandmaster doesn't require the system.
Yeah, and there wasn't a new raid. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew. Oh.
I want to raise a counterpoint.
Okay.
Efficiency.
Sure.
These, I think, in many ways, increase efficiency if used
Yes,
correctly.
they do. 100%.
The unfortunate counterpoint is nothing really takes into consideration efficiency, but if you're looking to be effective, to spend the least amount of time to get the quickest route to the build you're looking to make or the outcome that you're looking to achieve, this becomes pretty attractive. I know we're all kind of saying like, hey, there's nowhere that really needs it, but all because all because it ain't broke doesn't mean you can't become more efficient at it. Doesn't mean you can't become faster or it can't become easier.
Sure.
Just as a counter argument.
I think that's
like if it takes a couple hours to understand the system, but you're completing Nightfalls 5 to 10 minutes faster because you're using the system effectively, it's gonna be a net gain to your playtime long term.
My bigger issue is something Cool Guy brought up. It's like, what happens when this all goes away in 2 to 3 seasons, right? And it's like, I know that they're experimenting with stuff season by season on purpose, because if they put something into the game that like horrendously breaks the game or like makes things really, then they can just kind of sweep it to the side. They can just leave it behind, right? But part of me, like, this is happening with Champions, and it happened with Charge of Light. Like, why I didn't bother to learn the intricacies of the Charge with Light mechanic, right? Because then it still is in existence, right? But the fact that they're like phasing things out and like pushing things back behind, and this is just my personal thoughts on it based on the type of player that I am. I'm less motivated to learn things when I have the little nagging thought in the back of my mind, like this might not be in the game at some point in the future. And like, I don't want to get like all hyped into this Warmind stuff, and then 2 seasons on the road, we never see him again. And they've just been shifted onto the back burner. And I know that there's a lot of time in between now and the time it gets phased out where I could be using this stuff, right? But it's just a subconscious thing to me. Like when I feel like something is temporary, I care slightly less about it.
That is an excellent point. I am drawing a line in the sand. I'm calling it on that well thought out point from Merc. Well done,
Bringing
sir.
up the fusion rifle.
Got to leave him wanting more. We are so close to the end of this podcast. Do we feel like we could do just a small number of community questions? Because I don't want to feel like our viewers are being snubbed. Can we do like a lightning? Okay.
I think we can.
Yeah,
Here we
let's
go.
do it.
All right, let's try to keep answers maybe to one sentence. Very challenging.
Lightning round. You said it. Let's go.
Lightning round. Here we go. Erico, question. What are your general opinions on scout rifles? IMO between hand cannons and snipers, they have no breathing room or relevance. Anyone have a 1-sentence thought?
They need to do more flinch to snipers.
They take too much flinch.
What
get
they
flinched
said.
too hard.
A very strong role to even be considered, such as Night Watch's multi-kill clip outlaw, something like that.
Yeah.
Base, they struggle.
Agreed. I just think they're too situational. I only use scout rifles sometimes on a few maps, and sometimes I don't even do it on the maps that call for them.
I legit can't shoot straight back at a hand cannon with it. Like, I just can't. I've tried so many times.
And I can't not get headshot by a sniper, so there you go.
Here's a question from Trent. Rank these mods in terms of highest priority for PvP. Targeting, reload, unflinching, dexterity.
Targeting.
Targeting number 1.
Agreed, 100%.
Unflinching number 2.
Unflinching number 2.
Agreed.
And the other 2 I don't even care about.
Depends on the role. Reload generally, but
Oh, yeah, those can be within the perk set.
There you go. Crazy Watto wants to know Dynamic Sway versus Zen Moment on a Summoner.
DSR.
Both are good. DSR, though.
I'm going to go DSR off MNK.
I agree with that.
I'm going to go DSR. Question from Greed. Do you think we need a quick draw nerf on shotguns. Whoa, to make room for more shotguns to be competitive.
No.
This could get spicy.
You said lightning round. I'm gonna try my best to just knock this out quick.
Hit it, buddy, hit it.
This is a
With
big
or
one.
without it, both can be considered skillful. It is mechanically difficult to take advantage of that speed. But on the other hand, it ruins the strategy because now you always have the right weapon for the job. Both are correct. It's up to you what side of the fence you fall on.
Not to mention sprint cancel.
Correct.
I say no.
I think, yeah, I actually think, I don't know. I think Cam said it really well. I think Cam said it the best I could better than I could. But the unfortunate truth at the moment is unless they want to fix the instant swap glitch through sprint canceling, quick draw, like if you nerf quick draw, people are just going to do that. So,
Or give them all inherent quick draw.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Please
last
God.
one.
no.
Now we're cooking. Okay, final question. I want Drew to answer first. From Dakota. With 600 RPM auto rifles having an optimal time to kill of 0.7 seconds, would you guys be okay with Bungie reverting the Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten changes?
Oof. You know, the thing is, I love Not Forgotten. I love Luna's Howl. I'm very outspoken about it. And I don't care, because I love those weapons. However, comparing an auto rifle's TTK to a hand cannon is a very loose comparison, in my opinion. I love these weapons. I really do. And I think you could semi-justify, yeah, bring these weapons TTK back, but I'm gonna keep myself grounded in reality and to say, to compare the TTK of an auto rifle takes far more bullets. Hand cannon, it's, I don't know. I don't think I could justify off of that fact alone bringing Not Forgotten's OG TTK back. Personally.
Yeah, I will say that I think adaptive ARs have been overtuned to the point where they're probably stronger than they really should be, given what they are able to be used for. So I would say no based on that. But also, unless you're going to dramatically cut the amount of aim assist and ease of use that Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten have on console, if you bump those back up to 0.67, it's I would be not in favor of that. Those guns are, regardless of what people say on console and on controller, they are very, 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 very easy to use. The 3 crit headshot was not difficult to achieve, and they're tremendously forgiving.
I think what everybody needs to remember that TTKs are tied to the RPM and bullet time to kill. So it doesn't really matter what the damage is doing. It's either taking 3 bullets or 4. So 3 is going to be a 0.67 no matter what. They would need an RPM change. Like the 180s would need an RPM change, maybe to, let's say, a 200. But for those in particular, they had their time. Like, let's move on. Like, the game will go back to that. There's no reason to go back to that. I want new weapons, new gear.
Booyah. Well done, boys. Dude, DCP, original DCP, are you listening right now? That is how you do a lightning round. And with that, let's go around the table. Wrap things up. Tell everyone where we can be found. Cammy, where can the people at home find you?
That is youtube.com/CammyCakes Gaming, twitch.tv/CammyCakes, Twitter @CammyCakesYT, and at your local Ship 1 on Phantasy Star Online 2 when I'm not playing Destiny.
Drew, where can the people find you?
Find me on my YouTube, youtube.com/Drewsky's channel. Find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Drewskys, and on Twitter @Drewsky's channel.
Cool Guy, where can the people find you?
youtube.com/CoolGuyGames. At Twitter is @CoolGuyGames, and Twitch is I am Cool Guy Games. And GG's to everyone listening. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, man. It was a blast.
Mercules, don't leave the people hanging. They want to know where they can find you. Tell them.
You can find me everywhere podcasts are sold or given away for free. Destiny Massive Breakdown Podcast is my other podcast. You can find me on Reddit, Mercules904, Twitter, Mercules904, and Xbox, Mercules904.
Booyah. I am your host, Fallout. You can find me on YouTube and Twitch. Fallout Plays. Just put it into your browser. Ain't no work required. Fallout Plays. There ain't no other. You'll find me. Thank you very much for joining us. We are the Firing Range Podcast. We record every other Wednesday live on Twitch, and you can download our podcast wherever fine podcasts are available for download. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Peace.
Take care.